Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Off the Chain. Today I am super excited to have Voltura aka Gale AKA BAC
2745. I have that number ingrained in my brain now.
Very good, I bet you do. Mate, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
We're all down for you. You're down, I live here for NFT Fest.
Yep, I'm very excited to see, especially in the turnout during the week. That's something that I'm really interested to see, especially in this market too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mate, I love starting off with sort of origin stories to set the scene. This is content for mostly to help people from an onboarding perspective, to give them a point of view, maybe someone that they hear their story and it gives them inspiration or a way in to understand how to get into Web3.
Yep.
So give us a bit of a background on how as far back as you want to go.
So I feel like the first thing to talk through would be when we started Psychedelics Anonymous. So for background, for anyone who doesn't know, Psychedelics Anonymous to date is the largest Australian NFT project by size and volume, which is a really awesome place to be. We started in December, which is when we minted. We were working on the project since I would say very, very early August. But the point is that when we started, me and Adam specifically, who was sort of my right-hand guy, I feel like the last 7 years was purely practice for that moment, for 100%, because genuinely we had an opportunity, we had an outlook, we saw something to do, and we knew exactly what we were doing. And I feel like for a lot of people that may be listening that want to get into Web3 or want to get into NFTs or want to get into crypto as a whole, there's a lot of pressure surrounding making the jump quickly and going like, I'm going to go full time into this right now. And I respect that, but sometimes it's also not the time to do that. Sometimes it's okay to have a method or a field which you work in prior, so that when that opportunity presents itself, then you dive in. So given that, I had a marketing agency, you know this, marketing agency for about 6-7 years. Yep. I started that myself. I built that up over time. First couple of years was pretty rough. I'm sure everyone knows that. It wasn't a super fun time, but it was good. It was fulfilling. And then we grew that pretty quickly. And that agency's name, funnily enough, was Voltura, right? Which is transfer of service in Italian. That's what it means.
Okay.
And key fun fact for anyone who's trying to find names, GoDaddy auctions, just scroll through, Google the names, find out the meaning, you're sweet.
Nice.
Yeah, so anyway, marketing agency for 6 years, that was good. We got really up to speed in the last sort of 3 to 4 years of that, which, these things take time.
Yeah.
And then NFTs rolled around. I had some sort of basic conversations with Adam. And then we decided, we made the full plunge, in mid 2021 to go, all right, let's really look into this. Nice. And then by August, we're like, all right, we're doing it. It's this name. This is like, that's your job. This is my job. Let's go split and do it.
Have you always been entrepreneurial?
Yeah, so I've never liked the idea of working for someone else. I feel like a lot of people have that in them.
I feel that.
Yep, totally. Yeah, like I never like, in essence, we all work for someone, right? Especially if it's a client, we're still working for someone. But there's more control surrounding if it's your own thing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So when I was super young, actually, I think I was like 15, I convinced my dad to buy a camera for the family, right? Like I like taking photos and stuff, and I convinced him to buy a camera, and it was pretty expensive too at the time. And then basically I snuck out of the house on, I think it was Friday nights and Saturday nights with the camera. I put it in the bag, and then I put it in the hedge, like during the day, like in the hedge at the front. And then when I was leaving, because I know if I walked out and I was going to a party, they'd look at me with the bag and be like, "You've got alcohol in there, right?" So I'm like, I'm not gonna have that. Like, I'm not gonna go through that process. To avoid that. But I would go out and then I'd go into the hedge and pull the bag out, right? And I had a camera in it, lens in it, flash in it, all the stuff needed. And then I'd go to parties and take photos. And I'd, have a couple $100 here or there, like, a little bit of money when you're 15, 16, 17. Like, it was great. It was great fun. And that was sort of the start, realistically. So it's always been in me. I've never wanted to work for someone else. I did it for a period of time because you have to.
Yeah.
Right. You can't just jump 100% in. Like doesn't work out. No, it doesn't.
For most people, it doesn't.
You have to learn, right? You have to learn. But as soon as I could, I started my own thing, and that was just because I was working in a marketing agency, and I saw the owners of that agency who taught me a lot of things. But eventually, I was like, I can do this. So I jumped in pretty quickly, and then that was it from there. And I was pretty young. When I did that. So, yeah.
Well, that's cool. So, from the sounds of it, you've been able to sort of identify opportunities, and you usually strike with conviction once you sort of feel right about something.
Yeah, for sure. But we always miss too. Like we've missed heaps of things. We actually had cosmetic clinics for a while, and they were fine, but they weren't anything special. It didn't go the way we envisioned it to go. And that was, like more of a brick and mortar play. We had stores, we had fit outs. It was a different ball game. Yeah, it's a tough gig. And then during COVID, obviously that was the thing too. So that was difficult. We also did another startup, which went really well, but we got acquired really, really quickly. And part of me looks back on that and goes, I sort of wish we did see that through more. Instead of just taking the easy route and going, yeah, okay, cool, we'll sell. Instead we could have gone down that rabbit hole. But if we had done that, we may not be sitting here right now, right? So I never look back on things and go, I wish I did something else. I always look back and be like, okay, that happened for a reason. But that journey, I think, is so unique to everyone, and we all have to learn from whatever we go through, good or bad.
100%, no doubt. So you were getting to the decision around the project.
Yep.
From an NFT perspective, why psychedelics?
Great question. So the premise of psychedelics, so in my family specifically, we've had a lot of hereditary mental health issues, right? There's been anxiety, depression. I've been through my own bouts of those throughout the years, especially when I was younger. I didn't have a fantastic time at school, not super academic either. So that was a sort of an interesting journey for me. And when we were doing the marketing agency stuff, we were doing really good work, and we were benefiting big corporate though, big corporate was winning as a result of our work. Yep. And Adam and I, who we've been working together for 7 years, he also has similar views around mental health and anxiety and depression and things like that. We're on the same stance with that. And we both said to each other, years ago, we said, if we could ever try and make a genuine difference in some way, shape or form to a wider variety of people, then we would. So I think when we had the chance to dive into NFTs, obviously there's a much larger audience, there's way more people, it's, company to consumer, business to consumer.
Yeah, we spoke about this
B2B
to B2C.
Yep,
yeah.
Exactly. So, we were like, okay, well, how can we make a difference here? There's a lot of different forms in which that difference sort of materializes, whether it be charitable donations or actually service-based, experience-based. But we both agreed that if we were successful, if we could, we would do our best to make a difference. Now, pivoting back to the psychedelic side of things, there are a world where psychedelic medicines, while not completely researched or tested, are helping people who have specific issues that are treatment resistant. So treatment resistant depression, antidepressants don't work, or whatever medicines that they prescribe you aren't working, it's not making progress, and there's alternative ways. Now, there are a bunch of studies surrounding psychedelics and MDMA and things like that, and me and Adam feel quite passionate about that. While we obviously make sure that we don't recommend to do anything, people to do things, it's a little bit of a touchy subject, and we understand that, that's also, to be perfectly honest, probably a reason why, sometimes it's harder for us to work with other brands that are more conservative, right? Because we are psychedelic based, right?
But I was going to say it's part of the allure as well, right? It's sort of against the system.
Correct. So when we decided, and I was sitting on my couch in Brisbane actually, because I was hiding away from COVID. Smart decision there, complete luck. So I was sitting there and I was thinking, what do we call this thing? You know, like how do we call this? And it really goes against my rationale for naming, because I'm always like short names. Short names, Voltura, like 4 letters, 5 letters, 3 letters, just something short. But then I was sitting on the couch and me and Adam were talking about it, and it just came to me. I was like, oh, Psychedelics Anonymous, like Alcoholics Anonymous, but you know, like that sort of vibe. I'm like, people will get that, right? Even though it's so long and the URL does my head in because it's so hard to spell. And it's so hard to spell. I'm pretty sure I spelled it wrong for the first 3 months at least. So you know, that came to light. Then we had a direction from a name and brand perspective, and then we just went from there. And that was something that I think is great. And as a result, I think we've donated like 250,000 US to charity, which is split into different proportions. You know, whether it be psychedelic research perspective or you know, Beyond Blue or something like that. And we've also paid for thousands now of sessions of free mental health therapy for people that hold their NFT, and that's cool, right? You know, like at the end of the day, whatever happens to this space, this industry, our project, we can always look back on that really fondly and go, we made a difference there, and we've made a genuine difference there as well. And that is something that, you know, we go to bed with at night, and we
no one can take that away from you as factual. It's happened.
Yeah, it's factual. So
it's not on a roadmap.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of people, especially in NFTs, from a founder perspective, a lot of people get imposter syndrome firstly, and part of that is a rationale of, have we done anything meaningful? Yeah. Like, what have we done that's meaningful? And for me and for Adam, there's a number of things we've done that is meaningful, but those 2 specific things are things that we'll never forget and that we'll never, you know, stop thinking about, because it is something we can go to bed at night and go like, we did that. And that's great. So look, the psychedelic side of things, awesome brand, awesome mission. And you know, hopefully there's more research into it to help people that have specifically treatment-resistant depression and illnesses, and hopefully we see some.
Well, I mean, there's literature for thousands of years. There's islands on Greece that
totally.
See their religion.
You know, it's not some thing that's made in a lab. You know what I mean? Like that, and that's the thing for me. That makes a bit of a difference. Where it's more sort of nature.
Somebody's
provided.
given it to us for a reason.
Yeah. So I think that's a cool thing. Not only is it a cool mission and sort of understanding of why we're here, but it's also a cool brand. Like, we are able to do awesome psychedelic prints, the t-shirt you've got on, jacket I've got on. Like, we can keep it cool, we can keep it mysterious. I think in this space, people like that. So the more we can do that, the better.
No doubt, I love that. Now, you've obviously, well, not obvious to everyone, but anyone that's within your ecosystem, it's very clear that you've intentionally tried to do things that haven't been done before, whether it be your allow list process, you know, the gamification of different things, the mystique, like lots of different things behind it. Yeah. Obviously takes a lot of thought, and also when you got to lock it in your own brain, I'd go mental. Like, you wrote it down somewhere, right?
So the game plan is sitting somewhere. We spoke about this very early on in the piece, because there was a general sense of direction. Yes. But things definitely change over time, right? As everything does. And I think when we set out to start this, the most important piece of this for us was trying to do things that are different. You know, we minted 38,380 NFTs on day one. You know, that wasn't a concept back then in December.
I thought you were a lunatic.
Yeah, no one was doing. There's a YouTube video of a guy, you know, bless his soul, who was like, "They're not going to sell this out. This is complete. Like, what are they doing? There's too much supply." And like, I get it. And I was watching it. I'm like, yeah, no, I know, and I'm also not 100% sure what's going to happen either. But we'll find out, right? So I think the important part of that is just try things that are different. They don't always go to plan. Yeah. You know, like in December, early 2020, 2022 market, having heaps of NFTs didn't matter. Like no one cared. Like we were printing NFTs almost as quickly as the Fed prints money, right? Like we almost. And so, we were printing these NFTs out because we wanted people to have individual NFTs that represented an individual piece of a puzzle that you combine together and have a good time with, right? It represents a journey. But of late, because of the market, that just isn't feasible anymore. As much as I want it to be, it's not. So we've had to completely pivot the way we do that. And there's also, like to be fair, a little bit of scar tissue there from it not going, I wouldn't say not going the way we planned, but the market dictating a different journey for us, right? So because of that, we have new things that we've incentivized and ways to sort of, we're essentially raising our own interest rates to a degree, right? You know what I mean? We've got ways to reduce supply. And that keeps people happy. Now, internally, inside the brand, inside the org, people understand why, because we get it. But on face value opinion, that's where you have challenges. So there's an interesting lesson there to pivot that for me, we would never change anything because we wanted to do things differently from the start. And by doing that, we can either break boundaries down or we can set new standards. And as an example of saying new standard is the whitelist, allow list, whatever you want to call it, that was a new standard. That didn't exist. There was maybe 2 projects that were doing a pre-sale list, allow list, whitelist, and they were doing it for maybe 100, 200 members or 1,000 members that they categorized as, their friends or their family. And, I was talking to Adam, I was like, why don't we just do this for the whole thing? Like, it's brilliant marketing. Like it's, this is peak FOMO. If you receive this for a project that's hyped, you will instantly make money. And I know NFTs aren't always about money. But at the same time they are, right? Like at the same time they are, and they still are. So, people would want to get this because we had, after Mint, I had messages from people all over the world. Some people going, I got on this because I made a funny meme and you retweeted it and I sold it instantly. No shame there, like no shame at all. And, I've made, enough money to pay for my rent for 6 months. Real. It's real. Yeah, it's real. And that to me, again, is another sticking point where it's like, okay, like that's really beneficial. So then obviously that whitelist, allow list process, not only was it fantastic marketing, but it set the standard for stopping gas wars and just spending money on nothing. Gas wars are, while we don't see them anymore, for 2 reasons. One, market isn't as hardcore, but 2 is because we have a better understanding of things.
Better mechanics about people organize their lockdowns.
Except for obviously the other side, Mint, which was rough for anyone who did that.
Stayed well.
Yeah. So that's, that wasn't an example of intuitive thinking, but that's okay, these things happen. But generally speaking, that was a standard we introduced, which is still going on today. There's a slightly different methodology of which it's used, a more application style method. But if we want to be completely pop culturally relevant to today, we saw Valhalla Mint this morning at 7 a.m. our time. They had a very systematic and delicate application process. Everyone's sold. Like, you know what I mean? It's like this tactic does not keep people in the community that want to be there. No, like it doesn't. It's people who get there to make money to then leave.
It's their full-time job. There's arbitrage, and
Totally. So look, no shame to anyone in that concept, but I do think there is room for some sort of new style or trend here. And I think we saw that in Attempt with Frank from D-Gods. Same thing happened. Valhalla, same thing happened. For Izu, we did essentially the same concept that we did for PA. The same thing. We didn't see the outcome that we wanted to. There needs to be another realm or another tactic.
I think it depends on obviously it depends on the goals of the founders and how they're structuring their their capital raising, but also their revenue streams. But I see a massive play for, especially if there's existing IP as well, for a phased out model where you keep the demand at an all-time high because you're releasing in tranches. So instead of going, big collection and try and maintain it, you almost do I call it like a Medicare approach, where you've got your Genesis, you've absolutely smash that, and there's obviously benefits to it, but then you release following I guess tranches of the either collection or subsequent releases following that have different types of utility, but it keeps the supply and demand ratio at a high because it essentially you're not oversupplying the market that you.
Yeah, I think that strategy definitely has a lot of merit. I think the hard part with that is if your plan is you have a grand plan and you start phased out releases, if one of the releases doesn't go well, then the rest of your releases are screwed.
Yeah.
Right. So there's always risks and there's always reward. Yeah. Sometimes if you have a collection of 10,000 and you smash it really hard and you get that limit, like you get the upper limit, you actually achieve what you want to achieve, then you can just sit back and go, okay, all right.
Now what?
Now we're here. Now we can do what we want. But if you do a phased approach, almost like a Series A, Series B, Series C, like through a NFT mint proceed, then those sort of raises, if you want to classify it like that, have risk because the market might be catastrophically different at C, right? But you need that to function. Whereas you take advantage of the whole market now, get it all out of the way, cool, we've got 3 years worth of runway to go for, then you're fine. Yeah. So I think there's different levels to it and different applications. I think everyone definitely is different. I think what we are going to see is more sort of Web 2, and we always say, everyone says Web 2 brands, just brands that aren't in NFTs and crypto. Yeah, That's simply it, right? We're going to see them starting to play ball, and we're probably going to see some interesting new strategies simply because they don't have the knowledge background or scar tissue in some cases of going, okay, that doesn't work.
And that's exactly what I'm referring to. If they've got existing IP and existing war chests, then there's merit towards, and it also depends on how big their customer base is as well, right?
True,
but
true.
Obviously there's openings, and maybe they will be, we've already seen it with the types of Reddit, etc., but maybe they will be what sort of set these new ideas alight of how to sort of approach different releases or just different strategies in general from an economic basis.
Yeah, and when we see those approaches come to light, the one of the most interesting perspectives is their success based on what niche they're going for. Because most Twitter people, right, like a Twitter account is one of the strongest and largest assets you can have in NFT space right now, because NFT space is Twitter. That is how it exists. I think we were talking about this very briefly last night, and maybe it was someone else, but there was some suggestions around marketing on different platforms at the moment. And for me, there's just no point, because one, they don't understand. Two, the whole industry is getting pushed through basically, crap with FTX and Celsius Voyager, like that you bucket that all together, right? That includes us as NFTs. So trying to market on an alternative platform at the moment, you have to work your way past that. Unless you have a brand with a lot of existing IP, as you said, but then you have to convince, those people that this is the right thing to do or how to do it. And a lot of the problem is they don't understand how to do it. It's too complicated. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's like when we saw Azuki put an Azuki on a Formula 1 car, on Max Verstappen's car, I'm pretty sure. And the comments on some of those posts were so skewed. There was all the Azukis going like, I don't know what their thing is. It's like IZZB or so, I don't know, like something. They were saying that sort of catchphrase. And then there were F1 people going, why is this on the car? Like, it's the last race in the season. He's about to win. Why have we got some anime thing on the cart. Like, you know what I mean? There are genuine questions of going, what are you guys doing? Yeah. Now the answer to that is enough money solves all problems, you know, in that sense. So, you know, whatever, they paid for it, that happened. But there's a real disconnection between those two worlds. And I think for the industry to actually push forward, we will end up utilizing NFTs, not as NFTs. We won't be referring to them as NFTs, and we've seen that in Reddit as like digital collectibles. Yeah. But, you know, when my granddad goes and uses Apple Pay at a store, right, he just clicks a thing in his phone and scans his face and beep, like, he doesn't understand what is going on. Exactly. It just works. He doesn't know that it's using an NFC chip. He doesn't know what an NFC chip is. You know, it's like when you send international bank transfers, you don't realize you're using the SWIFT network. So
you don't know where it's bouncing, you just know you're trying to get
it. You don't know what is happening. Yeah. All you know is numbers go from here and appear there over a period of time. Yeah. So we will, with NFTs and with blockchain, there will be power users, which will be us, and then there will just be everyday consumers. And until we make that sort of step into everyday consumer world, we won't yet see a level of adoption, which then obviously puts a big question mark over profile photo collections, because realistically we provide digital identity, but we don't provide a mass adoption phase sort of experience yet. You know, not everyone wants to have an ape over their head, you know. So some people want to have, you know, themselves as a digital identity. But then counter argument on that is we look at sport, right? Like, I played a decent amount of sport in my life, right? I played basketball, played rugby. Wasn't very good at rugby, too skinny. But like, when, you know, sort of online gaming and e-gaming and like all these, you know, games like WoW and League of Legends and Dota and all these things came to play, the bar to entry, or the barrier to entry, is so low. All you need is like 2 eyeballs and 2 hands, and you can play. You can play at whatever level you want. It's very different to jumping onto a basketball court and actually playing basketball with people, right? Not only do you have person-to-person interaction, but you have the opportunity to be, you know, taken down. You know, someone catches the ball. If you like, there's so many different realms there. So digital identity in the form of a photo not only represents community, but also represents an easier way to enter an online world. Maybe you don't like photos of yourself.
Well, exactly. It's a form of expressing yourself without having to tackle the whole, you know, self-conscious piece that many people at that age, I'm thinking about gamers, rather pick it up the first time they're going through that.
Totally. And what's more important there is community and also status. You know, like, say I go home and I buy a couch that's like a $20,000 couch from Space Furniture, right? Awesome. I get to sit in that couch, enjoy it, watch TV. A few of my friends come over, they're like, oh, nice couch, and they spill, you know, fucking ice cream on it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, okay, that's fine. But only so many people see that as a status thing. Yes. But if I put a Bored Ape as my profile photo on Twitter,
you're scaling
Instagram,
the ability
Facebook,
to express yourself.
Everyone looks at that and they're like, whoa, okay. Yep. He's got one of those, righto. I understand that. Now, what they don't understand is some people may have bought it at different times. So for me, when I bought my ape, like, it was $6,000. So like, I'm showing you $6,000 worth of ape. It's not that statusy, okay? People, I don't wear expensive watches and stuff like that. Like, it's not statusy for me. But from the outside looking in, it's like, oh, that's a $100,000+ asset they're using as a profile photo. So status, community, and expression without having to put yourself out there and be self-conscious or have a photo or be the right lighting or whatever. Those are things which we avoid with digital identity. Yeah. So I think that's naturally going to come to pass. But again, it will take time.
For sure. Yeah, I think the the part around removing friction and removing the conversation of what they're doing is the biggest opportunity for sure. You know, elevating the consumer experience will be one way from a transactional perspective, and then there's going to be the education around, for people that care, of how this empowers creators as well, because there are a large amount of people out there that do care about that.
Yeah.
And then obviously, you know, the big one, I think for me, as well as what we sort of described there around the ability to express and the chance that it could create a more even playing field in some instances where, you know, the physical analogy that you gave there, where they don't have to have that ability to be able to be on the same playing field as someone else, you know, because they've got the ability through their digital means.
Yeah. I think, look, the digital world will obviously come to pass in a big way. I think you just look at online gaming to understand that, right? And I think we can all agree on that. The one big question mark is metaverse-y stuff. Now, I feel like metaverse stuff in 2021, especially end of 2021, was just so frothy. Like, it was just, are we going to be running around Decentraland and Sandbox with little avatars and talking to everyone? Like, no. Like, we're not, you know, and I said that publicly a lot in December and November. I was like, I don't think, you know, this may work out for a little while, but this isn't going to be a long-term thing. These companies aren't going to be it. They're not. And I just don't think fundamentally they can compete with the bigger infrastructure-based companies like your Google, your Amazon, your Apple, and stuff like that. And the Web3 community, the diehard powerhouse Web3 community, a lot of them don't like those companies because they don't like being tracked, they don't like being traced, they don't like giving their data away. And I understand that. But frankly, for a metaverse to exist, it's not like a decentralized network of a peer-to-peer place where you can send money. It's where are my friends? You know? Totally. You're like, where are my friends going to be? Is you know, Crimson Monkey and Munchie, are they going to be on the Facebook version, or are they going to be on Decentraland? You know, if they're on Facebook's version, I will be going to Facebook because they're my friends. So that's an interesting play. I think Meta is actually in a terrible position. Like, you know, operating profit hit the floor. Like, you know, they're spending more money on developing a metaverse than one of the space programs. Yeah. Like genuinely, like he's just throwing money at the wall, like, to see what sticks. And who knows if he'll actually get there and he'll actually make that. I actually don't know. I think he could be in a position where he could absolutely blow this up. Yeah. However, he may make it really good. We don't know. We'll see. But I think it's years off.
No, for sure. So what do you what are you seeing? Well, you know, obviously your opinion for 2023. Firstly, in the not the macro, but macro Web3 sort of environment, and then for PA and everything associated with that.
So, okay, so I think to understand a Web3 macro, we have to understand the global macro. You know, like, okay, where are we sitting? We've got interest rates highest they've been for an incredibly long time. We've got inflation at 10+%, generally speaking, in major Western countries, and, you know, terrible in places like Turkey. We have seen, I would say, probably a small slowdown from an inflation perspective in some of these larger countries. So that's good. Does it mean that that's the signal for it to start dropping? I don't think so. I think there's probably 3 or 4 months worth of still some pain at this upper end. And then we may find a stabilization. If we stabilize, then that'll give a lot of clarity. Markets don't like uncertainty. That's what markets don't like. You know, if there is certainty, there is more confidence because they know, okay, this is going to happen. We can prepare for this way. So if we find a stable point with inflation, or where maybe we see inflation start to go down a little bit, just slowly, then markets will regain a lot of confidence. Now, does that mean we're going to go straight back up? No, of course not. We're seeing huge layoffs from tech. I think that's completely reasonable. Some of those companies were just not doing it. I think looking at Elon and Twitter is a fascinating thing, because if he can cut the workforce by 75%,
still run the product,
and still run the product and make it better, then basically Twitter had 75% of its workforce that was just doing, well, completely fucking nothing, right? Like, so that's really interesting to watch. So then pivot that into Web3. Volatile markets still respond to outside means, with which being the economy, inflation, so on and so forth, because it's a confidence thing. So what are we going to see? I think we are obviously definitely in an NFT bear market. This is the first proper NFT bear market that we've ever seen. So we don't have, history to go, okay, it's probably not going to repeat, but it might rhyme. To go on. So we don't actually know how long this is going to last. Like, we don't know if this is going to be a 2-year thing, a 3-year thing, a 6-month thing.
Yeah, we don't know if it'll copy the crypto cycles.
We don't know, because it's also more pop culture based.
Correct.
Right? And pop culture doesn't always come in cycles. Fashion comes in cycles, but much longer cycles. Not that I know much about fashion, but I know that. Yeah, totally. So will NFTs come back around? Will they be a fundamental use point or use case in our lives to come over the next 5-10 years? Yeah, absolutely. We probably won't recognize them as NFTs, like I said before, but they will. Will profile photo NFTs be a valuable thing? I think digital identity isn't going away, and for the reasons I dictated around online gaming and stuff like that, that's really obvious. So that's important. Will they still be the level of which they are? I believe that there will always be a market for status within digital identity. So wealth and sort of
people. Since the beginning of time, that's been the case generally. So why wouldn't it happen here?
Totally. So I think that's where we leave a little awkward in between piece. Yeah. And there's the top 0.1% of projects, top 5, 10. Then there's sort of mid cap, which we're included in, and then there's the rest, which is like 98%. Now, those are the ones that are going to struggle the absolute most, because it's very hard to get off the ground, very hard to get moving, and I would suspect that most of those fall by the wayside. I don't think, not until we see a huge run on NFTs again, will we see those come up. So for me, if I was thinking about launching a project, unless I had very detailed understanding of how to actually market a project and bring it to market, and I knew all the players in the space and I knew how to work it, I wouldn't bother. I'd prepare it and just leave it. Because, if you launch now, you're not going to have a good time. If you wait, then you may actually get into a phase where it's easier. And that's when you can launch and things can go better. So the short story will be, digital identity is not going anywhere. Status and wealth in the form of digital identity isn't going anywhere. So that includes the top 1% and some of the mid-cap projects. Because, again, mid-cap project being 5, 6, 7, 8, 900 USD, that's a lot of money for a lot of people. Especially now. So I would say that is a relatively good demonstration of status and wealth and community and sort of consciousness together. So that's where that's going to be. Crypto as a whole, I think we'll just see that play out how we've seen it before. I think we probably have some more lows to hit, but will it be 10, 20%? I don't know. I would just be rallying myself surrounding coins that I personally think have less risk, systematic risk, like Solana. While at Lisbon, that crypto conference in Lisbon, they were like, we have so many validators and, we're so decentralized. And yeah, that's fine until someone holds like 40% of your supply and just unloads it and then it's dead. So, I think Solana had an issue there which wasn't to do with you or to do with me. It was to do with a much wider and larger problem. I think coins and networks like Bitcoin and Ethereum do not have that issue because there's no humongous supply problem. So crypto, I think, will go the way it's going to go. NFTs, we've got to watch and wait and see. I think PFPs and status and wealth will always stay around.
And what about PA and the Asian and all the rest of it? How do you playing next year?
For us, I think there's we will continue doing what we're doing from a charitable perspective. And then we have obviously our activities and our activations. We've got people who have been playing on Discord for the last, I know you've seen, I've seen you in there for the last 3 days trying to figure out some clues and play some stuff. We'll always have activations for people to enjoy themselves and have a good time, right? But what we need to focus on is product based. You know, we will launch one of the first trait marketplaces that exist. It's hybrid chain, so it's off chain and on chain. It's a combination. So it's not truly Web3 blockchain decentralized. It's not, and no real platforms are. But that'll allow people to customize and express themselves in a different way than they would before. And the important part about that is it allows us as a project to have more revenue than just royalties. Totally. You know, when someone wants to deconstruct an NFT into its parts, that costs a little bit of money. When they want to reconstruct it, it costs a little bit of money. When they want to buy traits, there's a marketplace fee. You know, there's little microtransaction fees built in in order for us to monetize ourselves from a platform perspective. Because I believe digital identity is here to stay, and I believe there needs to be more customization, which is why I've had a hoodie on my ape for the last 12 months. Like, I don't like the stun jacket, okay? Like, I don't like it, okay? So if I could change it, I would, but I can't. So that for me has been a fundamental need since I got into NFTs. I think it'd just be more entertaining. It also allows us to work with brands so they can introduce a special hoodie, or like, for God's sake, like, did you play RuneScape ever? No. Okay. If you play RuneScape, you know what you mean. Party hats, Santa hats, any of these clothing items that are just mundane and funny, people will be able to equip them, buy them, sell them. It becomes its own marketplace. Yeah. It also allows people to flip things at a smaller scale. You know, not a lot of people have enough capital to be like, I'm going to spend $1,000 on something and try and flip it for 1.5.
Yeah, risk it, exactly.
Yeah. But I can buy a trait for $50 and try and sell it for like 65. I've made some money.
Turns into like a more of an eBay, everyday eBay type play.
Totally.
I love that.
So
the sustainable revenue streams, new products is what next year is going to look like.
Yeah. So for us next year, our trait marketplace launches at the end of this year. So we'll have that full swing in December. And then next year, that's what we'll be focusing on. You know, we have a split entity for that. We'll probably do some raises in there to make sure we've got, for that specific entity, enough runway and space to roll. But that's where we want to play. That's where I want to play. And there was a few different options for us, and that was the one we picked.
Makes sense. Yeah, for sure. So to finish up, mate, we touched on it a little bit around taking time and sort of sharpening your tools, I guess. But for any entrepreneurs that are, you know, no matter what industry they're in, if they're interested in the space and they're wanting to get in, like, you know, especially now because it's relevant, what sort of advice or pathway would you recommend?
So a few little things. First fundamental thing would be, if you are holding crypto, obviously take it off an exchange. Let's be really relevant. Take it off. And I've been saying that for months. Like, just take it off, right? Hold it yourself, or have it in fiat in the bank account. That's the first fundamental thing, right? That's where people get caught out. Second thing would be, if you are interested in NFTs and Web3, go onto Twitter. Like, spend time on Twitter. I spend a lot of time on Twitter. When I was trying to learn, I spent 8 to 10 hours a day on Twitter, for sure. There is no better platform to understand, especially the culture surrounding it. Sure. I talk with, totally, you know, like, I spend time talking to brands and even agencies that are doing Web3 stuff now. They've got no fucking idea. Yeah. They've got no idea. They've got no clue. They got no clue because they just don't know. Because they're like, all right, we can do this, we can market this, we can mint an NFT, cool. They've got no understanding of the underlying culture, and therefore it's never going to go anywhere. So from an agency perspective, be careful with that. Find someone who actually knows Twitter, understands the network. That's where you're going to get value. But just looking, observing, and listening is the best way. The best way. But talk to people that have actually done it.
Exactly.
You know, talk to people that have done it. You know, like, and I've said this before, and I fundamentally agree with this, and some people may disagree. Agency life specifically, in the creative and marketing agency world, where your job is to help other people sell products and services, I believe if you are genuinely good enough, you'll sell your own service or your own product. And that's what we did. Like, we were a marketing agency where we were helping other people sell products and services for 5-6 years until we came up with our own idea, our own concept, our own opportunity, and then we executed on it. Yeah. So be wary of that, specifically in Web3. But I think just spending on time on Twitter is the easiest way to learn. Easiest way. I think, a lot of these conferences like NFT Fest and NFT NYC and NFT London, I wouldn't rush to them. I wouldn't, to be perfectly honest, because some of the speakers don't know what they're talking about realistically, to be completely frank. If you see speakers on there that have done things and that are actually really well known, then 100% go sit down and listen. But the other ones, just take it with a grain of salt. So I think be really careful with that. But if you spend time on Twitter, you'll understand way more than the next person. We're in a bear market. You can build something, you can put it together. If it's not life or death, sit on it until the time is right, and then go play. But the one thing that helped me the most out of all things was spending the time talking to people and outreaching to people. I spent so much time messaging people before we even did anything. I was from...
This space out of Eddie that I've been in is the best for that, because people are so willing to respond. Yeah. To obviously time permitting, but for the most part, it's if you're persistent, you can speak to almost anyone who you try to get to. Yeah,
and like since July 2021, I have messaged thousands of people, never asking for anything, never just conversation, just conversation. Because eventually, when you have that moment, when you have that time to shine, where you need something, if you ask, then they'll do it.
You've built the relationship. Yeah. You're not going in for an ask straight away.
Totally.
No, I love that.
So that's the one thing specifically in this industry.
Awesome. Well, mate, I really appreciate your time.
No, thank you.
Obviously, we're big supporters of PA and all Aussie projects in general, but certainly the ones that are doing it well. So wishing you all the luck and success in the future, and looking forward to spending today together.
Yes, it's going to be a good day.
Good on you, brother.
Good day. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Let us know what you thought. I really hope you've been enjoying Off the Chain so far. No matter how you're consuming this content, please leave your feedback either through the content platform itself or find me on Twitter at offthechainweb3. Cheers for your support. Thanks a lot.